The bells of Greymoor rang every morning at the same hour, just as they had for over 200 years. Not a minute earlier. Not a minute later. The sound rolled through the fog-heavy valley, slipping between crooked wooden houses and sinking into the riverbank, where mist rose like breath from a dying mouth. The bells did not announce danger or celebration anymore. They announced routine: wake, pray, work, eat, sleep. The villagers moved as if pulled by invisible strings, men with hollow eyes dragging tools older than their memories, women carrying buckets carved smooth by generations of hands, children silent in ways children should never be. No one noticed when the birds stopped nesting near the river. No one questioned why the fish floated belly up along the reeds, because Greymoor had always been this way. And that was the problem. Greymoor was not poor. It was not cursed. It was not even isolated. It was simply stuck. The river, known as Blackmere Bend, had been the village's lifeline since its founding. Every habit revolved around it. Drinking water, washing clothes, dumping refuse, slaughtering animals, burying waste. Even the dead were sometimes lowered too close to its banks when the graveyard filled. Generations ago, the river had been clean, clear, forgiving, but rivers remember, and Blackmere Bend had been absorbing the village's habits for centuries. Still, each dawn, villagers dipped their cups without hesitation, because they always had. The sickness did not arrive loudly. It crept. First came fatigue. Strong men returned from the fields exhausted before noon. Women complained their arms felt heavy, like they were lifting stone instead of bread dough. Children slept longer, ate less, laughed rarely. The elders blamed age. The priest blamed sin. The people blamed nothing at all. Then came the fevers. Low at first, a flush of heat, night sweats, shaking hands. No one panicked. Fevers were normal. Fevers had always come and gone. But these did not go. They lingered. They spread. And still, habits remained untouched. In the third week, the first child died. Her name was Marta. She was 6 years old and had a habit of counting steps from her door to the river, 43 steps every morning. On the day she collapsed, she made it to step 22. Her mother screamed. The bells rang. The village gathered. The priest spoke the same words he always did. No one asked why Marta's lips were black. No one noticed that her father collapsed 2 days later. Elias had noticed. He always noticed things. At 24, Elias was young by Greymoor standards, but old enough to be dangerous with questions. He was a mapmaker, which meant he spent more time observing land than obeying tradition. He measured distances. He tracked patterns. He noticed when roads curved strangely or when rivers changed colour after rain. And Blackmere Bend had changed. The water was darker now, thicker. It smelled faintly metallic in the mornings and sour by evening. Elias stopped drinking it, quietly. At first, it wasn't bravery. It was instinct. During his travels years earlier, along the coastal trade routes, he had seen sailors boil water, not out of fear, but habit. They did it automatically. Without prayer, without debate, they lived longer. He remembered that. Elias began collecting rainwater in clay jars behind his house. He boiled it over small fires, waited patiently, let it cool. His neighbours laughed. "You think steam scares death away?" One joked. Elias didn't answer. He had learned something on the road. Arguing never changes habits. Evidence does. As days passed, the village deteriorated. Livestock began dying first. Goats refusing water. Cows collapsing mid-field. Their bodies were dragged near the river, butchered hastily, meat shared among families. Another habit. Another mistake. The sickness grew sharper now. People vomited until there was nothing left. Skin lesions appeared, dark patches spreading like spilled ink. The old healer ran out of herbs. The priest ran out of explanations. Funeral pyres burned constantly, ash settling over rooftops like grey snow. Still, No one changed the river habit, because to question the river was to question everything. The council met on the 21st day. 12 elders sat on benches worn smooth by centuries of decision, making that never-involved change. Their hands shook, not from fear, but from weakness. Elias stood before them. "The river is killing us," he said. Murmurs erupted. Blasphemy, foolishness, youthful arrogance. "We've drunk from Black Mere since before your name existed." An elder snapped. "Yes," Elias replied calmly. "And now it drinks from us." They laughed. Fear hates being named. Elias spoke of the coast, of boiling water, of waste burial beyond living spaces, of separation during sickness. The elders heard none of it. Habits have a defense mechanism tradition. "You ask us to live like strangers," the priest said. God would not punish obedience. Elias looked around the room. "Then why are we dying?" Silence. The meeting ended without decision. The bells rang again. Routine resumed. That night, Elias wrote in his journal. He drew a map of Grey Moor, marked every death, every well, every waste pit, every household. A pattern emerged so clearly it made his hands tremble. The closer a family lived to Blackmere Bend, the faster they died. By the 4th week, entire homes were silent, doors open, meals unfinished, no bodies left to burn. This was how villages vanished in the Middle Ages. Not with screams, but with absence. Travellers would pass through months later, find collapsed roofs and weeds growing through hearthstones, and move on. No records, no lessons learned, just extinction by habit. Elias made his choice. He stopped attending gatherings, stopped communal meals, stopped sleeping in shared halls. People whispered, "He's afraid, he's cursed, he's selfish." But Elias stayed alive. And that terrified them more than death, because survival threatened belief. When his neighbour's wife collapsed at Elias's door, gasping for breath, he hesitated only a moment. He brought her inside, gave her boiled water, washed his hands with ash, separated her from others. She lived through the night. The next day, so did her child, and for the first time in weeks, someone survived. The village noticed. Habits crack slowly, but once they do, they collapse all at once. Greymoor did not change all at once. Change never arrives like a trumpet. It comes like a whisper, uncertain, fragile, easy to silence. The morning after Elias's neighbour survived, the bells still rang at the same hour. The fog still settled over the valley. The river still flowed dark and quiet, pretending innocence. But something unseen had shifted. For the first time in weeks, the number of funeral pyres did not increase. It stayed the same, and that terrified the elders. Word spread slowly, carried not by announcements, but by glances. She lived. They say Elias helped her. No prayers. Just water, boiled water. The idea felt dangerous, almost heretical, because if survival came from behaviour, not blessing, then everything the village believed about safety was wrong. Habits are not just actions, they are identities, and Greymoor's identity was built on the belief that the old ways were sacred. Elias did not preach. He had learned the cost of that. Instead, he demonstrated. Each day, he repeated the same small rituals, boiling water, cleaning with ash, eating alone, burying waste far from living spaces. He did them openly, without shame, without explanation. People watched from doorways. Mockery faded into curiosity. Curiosity into fear. Fear into imitation. One by one, families placed pots over fires, not because they believed Elias, but because they believed their eyes. The second survival was a child named Jonah, 7 years old, too weak to stand, too stubborn to die. His mother brought him to Elias after watching her sister buried 3 days earlier. She didn't ask questions. She just said, "Help." Elias did what he always did, separated Jonah from others, boiled water, cleaned wounds, waited. Jonah lived, and something ancient cracked. The elders convened again. This time, their benches were half empty. Some were dead, others were too weak to attend. Fear sat with them now, heavy and undeniable. "We cannot let one man rewrite the village," one elder whispered. But another asked the question no one wanted to hear: what if he already has? The priest visited Elias at dusk. He did not accuse. He did not threaten. He simply watched Elias pour water into a clay pot and place it over fire. "Do you believe God has no hand in this?" The priest asked quietly. Elias paused. "I believe God gave us minds," he said, "and habits decide whether we use them." The priest said nothing, but the next morning the church water was boiled. Change accelerated, not because of logic, but because habit works in loops. Cue fear of death, routine copy Elias. Reward survival. The loop reinforced itself. Soon the river was avoided. Waste pits moved. Gatherings shrank. People stopped touching the sick. For medieval society, this was radical, almost unnatural. But it worked. Not everyone survived. Too much damage had already been done. Entire bloodlines vanished. Homes stood empty, doors swinging in the wind like unanswered questions. Grey Moor would never be the same. But it would exist. And in the Middle Ages, existence itself was victory. Travellers arrived weeks later. They expected silence. Instead, they found smoke from cooking fires, children playing, fields slowly returning to life. They asked how the village survived when others vanished. The villagers hesitated, then pointed to Elias. Elias refused recognition. He was not a hero. He was a witness. He had watched habits kill, then watched habits save. Years later, monks recorded Grey Moor in their chronicles. Just one line. This village lived because it changed. No miracle, no prophecy, no divine vision. Just a broken routine. As winter approached, Grey Moor stabilized. The river healed slowly. The air smelled cleaner. The bells rang less often. And when they did, they rang for life events, not funerals. Elias walked the village one final time, marking changes on his map. The death clusters faded. The pattern broke. History bent. Centuries later, scholars would argue why so many medieval villages vanished without explanation. They would blame plague, climate, war. But the truth was simpler. Most people died because they could not imagine living differently. Grey Moor imagined and survived. Final moral. History is not changed by intelligence. It is changed by habit. The most dangerous words are, "This is how we've always done it." And the most powerful decision is, "I will do it differently today." One habit saved a village. One habit can save a life, even now.